But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. Let me tell you about my great God.
Hey guys, Pastor Tim here. Hope you guys are ready to get your day started off in God's Word. We are in Kings chapter 14, and we are continuing on with the reign of the now split kingdom of Israel. We got Israel up to the north. We got Judah down to the south. Israel being ruled by Jeroboam, and Judah, that's the name of the southern tribe. Judah being reigned by Rehoboam. All right, so don't get it confused. Jeroboam to the north, Rehoboam to the south, and Rehoboam is the son of Solomon. Now, both of these guys aren't doing a very good job at leading their respective kingdoms. They both lead their people into sin. They both allow their people to fall into idolatry, and we see the consequences of that first with Jeroboam. Jeroboam is reigning, and he's, because of his sin. All right, now remember, he specifically made Israel two golden calves, very reminiscent to what happened in the book of Exodus, made his own two gods, his own man-made religion, and of course, God was not going to have that. So he punishes Jeroboam by causing his son to be ill. Now, his son is Abijah, all right? But that's going to become very confusing because we're going to see later on in this chapter a prophet named Abijah, all right? Very much similar, just like Jeroboam, Rehoboam, Abijah, and Abijah. It can be confusing. But anyway, Jeroboam's son Abijah is fallen sick, and Jeroboam ironically realizes that his gods, his man-made gods, cannot save his son. He has to go to Jehovah God. But he, of course, is too prideful. He can't go himself, so he actually tries to send his wife in disguise to Abijah, the prophet, the same prophet that told him he would be king over Israel, and see if he can inquire of God to help his son. But of course, Abijah is told by God that Jeroboam's wife is coming to him, and so he sees through her disguise, even though he himself is not completely blind, but he can't see very well either. And despite this, he knows who it is, and he tells her what God plans to do, and it's nothing good. He says, hey, by the time you get back to your house, when you cross the threshold into your house, your son will pass away. All right, you will lose that first possible heir to the throne of Jeroboam. All right, and then because of Jeroboam's sin, all right, because he wasted the opportunity God gave him to be king over Israel, these 10 tribes, remember, this was God ordained that he be the king. He wasted that opportunity by living in sin. It will be taken away from him and given unto a new king, his next son, Nadab. And so what God said would happen did come to pass. So as soon as Jeroboam's wife went back into the kingdom, crossed the threshold to her house, Abijah passed away. So we see the downfall there, or just the punishment of sin for Jeroboam in the first half of the chapter, but we also see in the second half, Rehoboam wasn't much better. All right, he didn't make his own gods per se, but he didn't stop the people from falling into idol worship, and he was doing much of the same things his father Solomon was doing towards the end of his life as well. So things weren't going to end good for him either. The chapter just kind of ends just talking about Rehoboam's continual sin, and then he eventually passes away after reigning for 17 years, and it's just a sad state that we leave Israel and Judah in at the end of this chapter. The people are not living for God, and we know in the church history, in the history of the Bible, that eventually this is going to lead to the captivity to the Assyrians and the Babylonians because of their continual sin against God and not worshiping him, but worshiping idols. And it's all because their kings, their leaders, were not leading them the way that they should. They were not following the example of David before them, or Solomon at the beginning of his reign. They were following wicked examples of the pagan nations around them, and it cost them greatly. Specifically with Rehoboam, he lost some of the treasures of his house, and he had to replace what was the gold treasures, the golden shields and so forth, and he had to replace it with bronze shields. That's not as good as gold, and it's just kind of an example we see of when you follow God, you receive great blessings. But when you choose to follow your own selfish endeavors, when you choose to follow your flesh, you receive some sort of fruit from that, but it's not going to be equal to the blessings that God gives you. Instead of having gold shields, you're replacing it with bronze shields. Yeah, it might look pretty and shiny. You polish it up really good, but in essence, it's less valuable. It's not worth as much as what God would give you instead. All right, and many Christians are living in the world today where they forsake the blessings that God could give them because they're seeking their own kingdom first. They're seeking to satisfy their flesh, and in essence, they're getting cheaper blessings in return, the bronze things instead of the gold. All right, are you forsaking the greater blessing for simply seeking to satisfy your own flesh in the moment today? That's what's happening with the kings here. That's what happened to Solomon at the end of his reign. That is what's happening to Jeroboam and Rehoboam right now. They're forsaking the blessings that God could give to them by seeking to satisfy their flesh instead. And now they're replacing what should be gold with cheaper, less honorable things in their lives. That's all I got for today's chapter, guys. I hope you have a great day. I hope you continue to be in God's Word, being faithful, writing things down in your journal. Tell your accountability partner what you got out of God's Word. Tell your parents, tell your friends. Just continue this conversation about your great God. Stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.